The storm outside roared like a living thing, battering the lighthouse keeper's cottage with wind and salt. I had been sent to house sit for my uncle, a marine biologist, while he explored the ocean's deep trenches. I had arrived 3 days ago, and already the isolation was pressing on my nerves. The waves thundered against the rocks far below, and the lighthouse beam swung like a giant, unblinking eye. Inside, the cottage smelled of mildew and sea brine. The walls were lined with nautical relics collected by my uncle over decades. The centerpiece was a full-sized wooden figurehead in the corner of the living room. It depicted a sailor, arms crossed, staring blankly forward. It usually seemed like a curiosity. Tonight, with the wind howling and the lights flickering, it seemed to watch me breathe. The power had gone out earlier in the evening. I sat by the fireplace with only a dim battery lantern for light. My phone was losing charge fast. The storm outside showed no sign of letting up. As I tried to focus on the pages of an old novel, a loud thump came from upstairs. It sounded like something heavy had been dropped. My spine stiffened immediately. I sat frozen for a moment, staring up at the ceiling. There was nothing upstairs except storage rooms and empty bedrooms. I called out cautiously, my voice nearly drowned by the shriek of the wind. There was no reply. Only silence, and then the distant groan of wooden beams shifting. I told myself it was probably just the house settling. Still, I could not ignore the unease growing in my chest. I rose slowly and picked up the heavy brass telescope from its wooden stand. It was solid, old, and would serve as a decent weapon if I needed it. I crept toward the stairs, every step on the worn wooden floor feeling unnaturally loud against the quiet of the cottage. The stairs creaked under my weight as I climbed. My phone's flashlight was the only thing cutting through the blackness. Dust floated in the beam as I reached the upstairs landing. 4 closed doors faced me, lined up like secrets waiting to be discovered. My uncle had warned me not to open the last one, at the far end of the hall. That last door was different. The frame was darker, older, and slightly warped from moisture. My uncle once muttered about unstable foundations and hidden things best left alone, but now, from behind that forbidden door, came a sound that made my blood freeze. Scrape, scrape, scrape. Something was being dragged across the floor inside. I took another step forward, heart racing, hand clenched around the telescope. I demanded to know who was in there. The moment the words left my mouth, the scraping stopped. Complete silence fell again. But now, a new sound took its place. Drip, drip, drip. It was soft, wet, and came from behind the same door. I leaned in and pressed my ear against the door. The dripping continued, steady and cold. Then, just as I began to pull away, I heard it a soft, wet sigh. It was not wind. It was not the house. It came from something alive. Something just beyond the door. Something listening. Terror surged through me. I backed away quickly, almost stumbling, clutching the telescope like a lifeline. My only thought was escape. The living room downstairs had a landline. It came from something alive. Something just beyond the door. Something listening. As I turned, a sudden and violent bang erupted behind me. The door shook in its frame, the wood splintering around the latch. Something inside was trying to get out. I screamed, bolting down the stairs, slipping once but catching myself, driven by pure adrenaline and blind panic. I reached the landline, fumbling to lift the receiver with trembling hands. I dialed. Nothing, not even static. The storm had taken the line down. Despair closed in like the walls of the cottage. I was alone, no signal, no connection, and something unnatural was now loose upstairs. Then it came again. Another bang, even louder, followed by slow, deliberate footsteps on the stairs. Thump, creak, thump, creak. I backed away, heart pounding. I knew those boards. I knew those boards. I knew exactly where each sound was on the staircase. It was getting closer, step by step. I backed into the kitchen, looking for a way out. But the doors were bolted tight against the storm. No keys, no windows large enough to crawl through. The cottage had been built to keep things inside. I turned back just as the footsteps stopped. They were right at the bottom of the stairs. Then came the voice, low, dry, and scraping like sandpaper dragged over stone. "You heard me, did you not?" I froze. The voice was ancient, hollow, as if it came not just from a mouth, but from within the walls themselves. I could not move. I could not even breathe. A flash of lightning illuminated the room, and I saw it. A tall, thin figure standing at the foot of the stairs, head tilted unnaturally to one side. It wore something dark and tattered. Its face was pale, stretched into a silent scream with hollow eyes, and in one hand it held a rusted ship's hook. Darkness swallowed the room again as the lightning faded. But the image of that face was burned into my mind. That thing was not a man. It had never been a man. The lighthouse beam swept slowly past the window, and in that fleeting glow I saw it again, closer now, watching. Its body did not move, but I could hear it. That same wet drip, drip, drip. I could almost feel it in the air, the smell of salt and rot and old water. I raised the telescope high and screamed, hurling it as hard as I could toward the shape. The metal struck something solid. The figure let out a shriek so loud and unnatural it cut through the roar of the storm. It sounded like rusted metal tearing through bone. I covered my ears, stumbling backward. The figure reeled, then lurched sideways, knocking over a cabinet with a crash of wood and glass. I turned and ran again, diving behind the sofa as the sound of something huge crashed through the front wall of the cottage. Then silence, followed by the sound of water, a splash, a deep one, as if something had thrown itself been thrown off the cliff into the churning sea. I lay behind the sofa, trembling, soaked with sweat and rain. My phone's light flickered once and died. I waited, too afraid to move, listening for footsteps, listening for anything, but all I heard was the storm. I stayed there for what felt like hours, unable to close my eyes. Eventually, the lighthouse beam continued its slow, silent watch across the sea. Its rhythm was comforting now, even as it reminded me I was alone. I sat up slowly, scanning the shadows, but the figure was gone. Whatever it was, it had vanished into the storm and the night. I did not sleep. I sat in the corner of the living room, arms wrapped around my knees, staring at the door. Every creak made me flinch. Every gust of wind sounded like footsteps. I waited for the first light of morning to seep in, but even dawn could not chase away what I had seen. My uncle returned 2 days later. When I told him everything, he listened without interruption. He did not laugh. He did not deny it. He only nodded once and said he would check the room himself. Then he walked slowly up the stairs toward the forbidden door. He was gone for almost half an hour. When he came back down, his face was pale, unreadable. He said the door was still intact. There were no splinters, no signs of damage, but the window in the forbidden room had been shattered outward. Cold wind still howled through the broken pane. There was more. My uncle said the floor beneath the window was stained dark with something that was not water, something thick, something that had soaked deep into the wood. And above that stain, hanging neatly on the wall, was a ship's hook, new, gleaming, untouched by rust. He did not offer an explanation. I did not press him for one. Something passed between us in silence, an unspoken agreement that some things are better left unanswered. I packed my things and left the cottage that afternoon. The storm had passed, but the damage was done. I never returned to that cottage, not even to visit. Whenever my uncle invited me back, I made excuses, and he never asked twice. I think he understood. The hook still hangs on that wall, untouched, waiting. I have no desire to know if anything has changed, but sometimes, when the weather turns violent and the sky blackens with storm clouds, I think about that night. I hear the wind howl against my apartment windows, and sometimes, in the roar of the rain, I swear I hear it. That same wet sound, drip, drip, drip. The sound never lasts long. It fades with the wind, but it always leaves me cold, because I know what it means. It means the sea never forgets, and that somewhere out there, in the mist and the tides and the hidden corners of forgotten rooms, it is still listening, and it remembers me. That was the end of my story. I wish I could say it brought closure, but some doors never truly close. If you listened all the way through, thank you. Stories like these live in shadows, and sharing them keeps their warnings alive. If it chilled you, unsettled you, or made you look twice at an old wooden door, then do not forget to like the video, share it with someone who dares, and subscribe for more true horror stories from places we should not go. The next one might already be waiting at your doorstep.